It's indeed my honor and privilege to introduce to you all our special guest quiz master for today's quiz, Mr. Sam Pitroda. Thank you so much for joining in, sir.
Thank you, Raghav. Dear students, families, all the viewers who are online, greetings from Chicago. It is 1 a.m. in the morning, and I'm delighted to be here, mainly because I get a chance to talk to young people. I have a granddaughter who is 10, and out of blue, she called me today and she said, "Grandpa, I believe you are going to be talking tonight." I said, "How did you find out?" She said, "I saw it on Instagram." So I am quite impressed with all you young people who are connected and are willing to learn and are curious. My compliments to you all. You are the future of the world. When I talk about redesign the world, in a hyper-connected world, information gets democratized. Decentralization becomes reality. And we need to redesign the world because of hyperconnectivity. You have seen during COVID crisis, your education system is changing. Not that everybody has access to technology, but those who have access to technology can begin to think differently. So today we'll be talking a little bit about it, and I'm sure the questions we have will give you some idea as to what this book is all about. What are we really talking about? Do you know what this means?
Yes, sir.
The question is, figure out what this is.
So, sir, I think the answer is public telephones.
Yes, pretty close, but we used to call that STD PCOs.
Yes, sir.
Public call offices. But your answer is right. You see these yellow booths all over.
Yes, sir.
When I started my work in telecom, Nainika, we had 2 million telephones for the entire country. Your grandfather will tell you, may not be your father, that it used to take 10 years to get a telephone connection. It was very difficult to get telephone in India. This was in 1980. In the span of about 40 years, today we are a nation of connected billion. We have over 1 billion phones. You're all using mobile phones. That is the power of a country like India. Not only we have 1 billion phones, but we have developed huge human resource in software, IT, and we produce $150 billion worth of software export. India is recognized in the world as the IT power. All the seeds for this were planted in mid-80s when Rajiv Gandhi was Prime Minister. I'm 80 years old, 80. When I started my work in India, I was in early 40s. So the message is we can do anything in India if we put our mind to it. We have a lot of talent, but it takes time to do things. You need to plant right seeds, and building a nation is very complicated. So my compliments to you for the right answer, and my compliments to all of you who answered it right. You may not see many STD PCOs anymore, but that was the thing in 90s, where you could access a telephone and make a phone call, but you didn't have to own a telephone.
My parents tell me that when they were young, they used to go to the telephone booth to make long distance calls to their family and relatives. And it was you who was responsible for it. Today, it is so easy to make those calls. So, when we grow older, how will we end up communicating with those far away, according to you?
Your parents are right, but I don't think I should take all the credit. Lots of people worked on it. I was one of those. Rajiv Gandhi, as a prime minister, provided political will. I had the domain expertise, and lots of young people, young engineers from IIT, from other universities, all worked for 4 years to design the product. Then a lot of small industries worked to provide components. Manufacturing plants were set up. Government policies had to be changed. So it required a large number of people to bring about a generational change. When you grow up, which you are already using cell phone, but you will be using 5G, 6G, and 7G. What it means is faster, cheaper, bigger, better. The key is going to be that it is no longer a phone. It is a tool to empower you as a citizen. It is not about talking anymore. It is about becoming a better citizen. You'll get all your knowledge on this, government services, payment, market information, transport, vacation planning. So this will also allow you to vote. So today, when you vote and send your MP to Delhi after 5 years, you see him, you'll be able to bug him on the phone. You'll be able to see his performance here. So you will be empowered as a citizen. That is going to be the future.
So, how did you envision the telecom revolution, even when there was no infrastructure or any base available in India at that point of time?
Sahana, I had done a lot of work in the US then. You know, I came to US 57 years ago. So when I was young, I had worked in America. I went to India to take my parents to see Taj Mahal. And I tried to call my wife from Delhi to Chicago. And I couldn't make a phone call. So a little bit of arrogance and a lot of ignorance said, I'm going to fix this. So I decided to spend 10 years of my life to work on telecom in India. And I had to make a decision. One, do I really want to build a business, or I want to help in the process of building a nation? Rajiv Gandhi gave me political will and basically meaning to my life. Without its support, this would not have been possible. Without the support of young engineers in India, this would not be possible. So my focus was to really build human capacity. If you have talented people, you train them in telecom, telecom will flourish. If you train them in software, software will flourish. So the main goal was to focus on building human capacity. Indigenous know-how, Indian talent, Indian model of development, rural telecom, C++ software, which was not known at that time. This was 1980. And we did all kinds of interesting things. And we got political support to get it done. So we were lucky that everything came together. I had never used telephone until I was 23 years old. because I didn't have telephone in India. We were, sort of poor people. And anybody who had a phone was too rich to be my friend. So I made my first phone call in America. So you are lucky not only to have access to telephone, but you are lucky to have this kind of curiosity and knowledge. This particular slide that you see on the screen talks about the human disaster. It is about global warming. It is about sustainability. It is about cleaning our ocean, cleaning our air, and the environmental blunder we have made because of the last design. Last design talks more about consumption and more consumption. Last design said consumption is important for growth. And this is what happens when you consume too much. My generation could never imagine that you would drink water from plastic bottle. Today we produce billions of plastic bottles, and that's what you see there. So the redesign that I'm talking about does emphasize conservation and sustainability. We don't need to go on buying lots of things just because we can afford. We need to buy what we need, and we need to produce for people who need it and not for people who can afford to buy. And that relates to the question of basic human needs. Today, we spend $2 trillion on defense, and we know we can eliminate hunger for $200 billion a year. But hunger continues, and we go on spending more money on buying more aeroplanes to shoot people. We spend more money on killing people than on our health infrastructure. Corona crisis has shown us that we are all interconnected, interrelated, interdependent, interwoven. What happens in Africa affects India. What happens in India affects China. What happens in China affects the rest of the world. In this kind of an environment, when somebody says, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Dalit, I'm woman, I'm Hindu, I'm Muslim, I worry. I worry because we are dividing people by putting those kinds of labels. In India, you have Dalit and minorities that we use to divide communities. In America, we use blacks. Black Lives Matter movement, I'm sure you must have heard about. So I think it is time for us to respect every human being, provide dignity, and focus on inclusion. Everybody must have same rights. Everybody must have same access to opportunities. And that can only come from democratic values, institution building. And we also need scientific mindset. We have lost scientific mindset. When people think that cow urine is an answer to a lot of medicine without any scientific proof, I worry about it. So I think this environmental challenge, global warming, requires scientific mindset. We have given a lot of lip service, cleaning India to everything else. But not much has happened at a global level on addressing climate change.
Really gracious of Sir to take that night, like it's actually early morning there at I don't know, 2 o'clock or so, but for Sir to really address our children like this.
Worth it. It's worth it just looking at these faces. It's worth it.
Thank you so much, sir.
In your childhood, did you ever had a dream that you will be able to do all these? And also, what did you wanted to become when you grow up?
That Shah, I did not know. I had no idea. Okay. Only thing I knew is that I wanted to study hard. I wanted to help my parents. We were poor. We were 8 brothers and sisters. My father had 4th grade education. But I also wanted to be Gandhian. Focus on truth, trust, love, inclusion, diversity. I learned these things at very early age in life. And to me, character, morals were the most important aspect of my life. I had no idea of what I was going to do because we were not as smart as you all are. We didn't have the exposure. Look, I had never used telephone. There was no electricity, no water in the village I was born in, no pharmacy, no doctor. I went to school in Gujarat, college in Baroda, which was a big city, but I'd never used telephone. I'd never seen television. We didn't have all of that. I'd never been to 5-star hotel. And one fine morning, I read in the newspaper that President Kennedy has decided to send man onto the moon. I was young, and it sounded romantic. I didn't have money to come to America. I did not even know what it meant to go to America. I had no idea of Chicago because information was not available in those days. So I took a boat from Mumbai to Karachi, Karachi to Aden, Aden to Egypt, Egypt to Naples, Naples to Genova, then took a train from Genova to London, took a plane from London to New York, and took a bus from New York to Chicago. This was 57 years ago. I came to get a PhD in physics. I had a girlfriend in India. So I changed my subject, got a degree in electrical engineering, got a job, sent a ticket to her, called my girlfriend here, got married, and started my life. My life has been full of accidents. Things happen. You know, I couldn't call my wife on phone, so I said, I'm going to change India's phones. Okay. So I think life has been an adventure. Planning sometimes works, but most of the time it doesn't work. It is good to have a plan, but I think if you're not willing to take risk, if you don't have courage, things don't happen. My highs have been very high and my lows have been very low. But I would say I had a very interesting journey and I have many, many people to thank. I have wonderful 2 children. I have 3 grandchildren. And I'm blessed and I'm happy and I'm content and I enjoy life and I'm fulfilled. So my life was not planned that way.
If there was one message from you to all of our children today, what would that be, sir?
My message to all children would be to focus on building good self. A self that is respectful, self that is disciplined, creative, curious, ethical, analytical, innovative, self that is rooted in morals. Help everybody. Don't lie. Don't cheat. Don't mistrust. Don't hate anybody. Love everybody. If you build a good self inside, everything else will fall in place. Don't worry about grades. Don't be jealous of number 1 if you are number 2. Okay? Don't hate anybody. Just be nice, helpful. That will take you further in life then good grades. I wasn't the best student in my life, in my class. I know what happened to the top 3 people. Okay. The key is to be a decent human being. And nobody teaches you that. Schools don't teach you that. Sometimes you tend to cheat, lie. And that is going to bite you later in life. So just be a decent human being and build a strong self that you respect. You see, for me to respect you, I must respect myself. If I don't respect myself, I cannot respect you. If I'm not confident, I cannot help you. So I think if you just focus on building good self, you will conquer the world.